Welcome back. This is Dr. TK, and I want to especially talk to therapists today. And so I think that a lot of mental health providers, we are at the point in our mental health business, maybe even you are at the point in your private practice, and you want to go beyond one-to-one therapy. You do not want to keep adding on one-to-one clients. And so for myself, as an active, licensed, and practicing psychologist in Southern California, one of the very first times that I drastically saw a change in my business model was what I'm going to be sharing with you today around how I generated $1,000 in just 2 days over a weekend inside of my private practice. But before we get into the case study and me break it down step by step, and your girl got those slides, I want to be clear. I did not wake up one day and randomly decide that, oh, I just want to have another stream of income. I've always believed that I am designed to make a bigger impact. And I know that my limit is not just with one on one, but at some point, in order to leverage my time, I do want to go beyond one-to-one therapy. And so, before I break down exactly what I did, I do want to first walk you through how I was already thinking about my expertise, my niche, and the resources that actually helped me. Because this is where I do believe that therapists sometimes get stuck, especially when it comes down to clarity about what stream of income should naturally, organically, and what they are aligned with based on their experience and expertise, of course, comes next. And so, I know that we hear online, and I talk about it as well, start a therapy group. Maybe you should have a course. Maybe you should have an ebook, maybe even a whole coaching program. You should go out there and speak, girl. You should do a consulting opportunity. Maybe you should become a supervision, like a supervisor. And while all of those things are definitely things that I teach here on my podcast, giving people previews into streams of income, and I also go deeper within the execution guides in our Scale Academy and in our mastermind, I want you to slow down and start to think about which stream of income do I have the most evidence to support? Meaning, what do I already have in my arsenal, in my lived experience, in my career? And also, do not forget about the experience that you have or had before you actually got licensed. And so, a better question to ask yourself is, which stream of income makes sense for me right now? And that's what you're going to see in terms of my alignment with my first $1,000 1K weekend, because I'm going to break down how I used what I had and literally just went crazy and went out there, made some money. But more importantly, I reached more people in the same amount of time that I would doing a whole lot of individual sessions. Okay. So I'm going to be sharing mine by all means. If you are, here live, go ahead and drop it in the chat box. I love to hear from y'all. So let me go ahead and open up the chat box. So good afternoon. We have Lanita. We have Real Dr. Cleve. Dr. Cleve, what's up? so sorry if I butcher names, y'all. Okay. DM me on Instagram and give me a voice note and tell me the correct pronunciation. Okay. But what I would like you to do, I'm going to share my screen, and I want you just to jot down, because you can always replay this. I want you to jot down your aha moments, but especially your ideas and specifically, execution. So, if you are new here, make sure you subscribe. If you are not new here and you ain't subscribed yet, we don't know what you're doing. Okay. Go ahead and subscribe and join our abundant corner of the internet. What I have found is that people really enjoy the teaching component of these live streams. And so if I'm looking everywhere, y'all, I'm just trying to pull up the live stream. Hold on for just a second. Okay. Present. And while we're pulling this up, put in the chat box, if you could do speaking workshops or trainings, who would you do it for? Like, what type of population, or what is the demographic of the presenting problem? Because what I'm going to break down today is working with transitional age youth. But when I talk about these things, I want you to convert them to your population. But to get our juices flowing, I like to do active participation, even if you are watching later, so that, when you get your juices flowing, you can actually, implement faster. All right. Okay. So let's go ahead and jump into it. And so I'm going to take you behind what I consider the workshop that I did in the very beginning phases of my private practice once I was able to get a stable office space. And so I'm going to be breaking down step by step of what led to what's considered the independent living skills workshop. I had a whole name for it, but nevertheless, go ahead and hop into it. So it was one weekend. It was not all day. It was like 9 to 12, 2 days in a row in one weekend. I've tried this workshop where I've done it 2 days back to back. I give the kids food like pizza or sandwiches or something, or I do it 2 Saturdays spread out. I have found that if I do it back to back, it cements better, especially because these kids are outside, they're online and all the things. But this is not a like CPT code. And this is why I'm introducing this, because I think that by default, we think about therapy groups, individual therapy, couples therapy, family therapy. And I want you to start thinking outside the scope of what streams of income or what is a stream of income that you can do when you want to. And it's not like boxing you in for 8 sessions or things like that. Okay. So I did not have to add any one-on-one client. To be honest, this is one of the streams of income I love because there is no intake process. Hello, there's no progress notes. And so here's how it happened. I used something I was already paying for. So as I'm going through these, I want you to be like, this is what I'm paying for right now. Okay. So I had landed after hopping around to different physical spaces. I was in what's considered what do you call it? Like it's they have peer spaces right now, but um I had it as part of like my office suite. So let's just say if I was paying back then like $1,000 for our office for all month, it was an internal office. At one point, I got a window office, but it came with a certain amount of credits for me to use the conference room. Okay, the conference room. So I was looking at where can I host a workshop for transitional age youth where I do not have to come out of pocket. And for me, it was included every month. It's just that some people would never use their credits. I also looked at what is something that I can teach that I have taught before. So a little bit of background about myself. Even before I was licensed, I was developing curriculum. I love to teach. I took, teaching classes in grad school from my master's degree to my doctorate degree, became a TA in my doctoral program for psychological testing. And then because I was working in the undergrad program in the admin office as like a peer advisor, helping link undergrad students to the right classes and helping them understand volunteership, internship hours, and talking to them about the doctoral program and master's program, the professor and the dean over that department actually at the last minute somebody had a family emergency and they needed someone to cover a class called social psychology. I did not need to be licensed to teach that class, but I did need to be licensed to teach like ethics testing and things like that. So it was an undergrad. I was 25 years young. When I was 25, I think my hair was literally like this. And so I say that because appearance matters, and I looked a lot younger than what I was. And so I was 25 looking probably 19. And so nobody really knew it was at all my first class until I told them at the end of the 15 weeks. But that teaching led into me getting licensed, having other opportunities. And I've taught from undergrad classes all the way up into the dissertation process, had students defend, graduate, do all the things. And I just realized like, wow, I'm sitting on a wealth of not just knowledge, but how I show up in public. So if I'm a teacher, odds are I can take a very complex topic and break it down into small chunks of information. And that was seen through my midterm and end of year or semester evaluations from students from all of these like 4 colleges I was teaching at. So nevertheless, I took all of that experience of teaching plus my my therapy and clinical skills in schools, K through 12, juvenile correctional facilities, juvenile halls, juvenile camps, and when they came home aftercare. And then I also looked at some of the things that I was experimenting with at my job. Write that down. So sometimes we are developing things for our clients at our job that have nothing to do with the evidence-based practice, but you do it so that your client can apply what you're teaching them in a very simplified way. Because sometimes these binders that they give us are not made for certain populations. I'll just leave it there. So I worked in Compton, Long Beach, Watts, if that gives you an idea of, the inner city youth of the people that I worked with, 95% gang affiliated, member in the street, at-risk youth, very high. So with that in mind, back then the aftercare program did not exist. And this is the key. Most of the time our brains are moving when we notice that there's a gap in the field. Okay. My job as a business owner is to figure out what the gap is and to fill the gap, or other people may be filling the gap, but I want to do it my own way. So I realized that these kids that were leaving high school were presenting as anxiety disorder or adjustment disorder with anxiety and mood, because they were in fear of leaving their parents' home or guardians' home, moving into the dorms, being on their own. Like, it seems like all of the things that their parents were saying or complaining about all of a sudden became factual evidence. And they were like, I'm not prepared. Also, the parents and the guardians did not know that curriculum that was available in the 90s and before were no longer available, like electives, teaching kids how to cook, government and economics, teaching kids how to look for jobs. All of that stuff was removed. How many of you, put a one in the comment box if you're watching live, how many of you realize that it was gone, and it's been gone now for 2 decades? The only schools who have it are the schools who have an abundance of funding, or they have grants, funding, or maybe it's a private or charter school. Outside of that, public schools don't have this unless people vouch for it. So because I knew what I had and what these kids do not have, I took it upon myself to start creating living skills packets for when these kids would graduate. And then I started dressing it with, coupled with their anxiety symptoms. And then I started hosting after school workshops. I did get paid for it, on independent living skills. So I went from piece by piece, building it in session, not realizing that I was ultimately building a package of a workbook that I can technically publish right now and get paid for it digitally, and a physical book based off what I was specifically teaching. And then it led into opportunities of me going to this same school, after school programs, and getting paid from their bucket of money, because they realized that, oh, wait, you know how to do this already, and this is missing. Well, what happens when I go to the juvenile correctional facilities? Now I realize, and I had a real problem. Like, I don't like to argue with anybody at my job, but I will advocate for something that's missing that is supposed to be there for certain populations automatically. Okay. And one of the things I noticed was when they left juvenile camp at that time, there were works happening behind closed doors, but it wasn't up and running when I was working there in 2009, 2010, for these kids to transition smoothly from camp to home outside of probation and mandated treatment, right? And so they said, you can't track the kids, when they leave. You can't have any therapeutic relationship for legality purposes. I did my live stream last week on documentation. Make sure you check that out. So I said, okay, I can't follow up with them, but I can give them something. I believe in transitional objects, object relation therapy. I had a lot of training there. So I would give them this workbook that I created. I went over it with them their last 4 sessions in jail. Then when their parents or caregivers would come into the jail on the weekend, I would introduce it to them and give them a copy. Do y'all follow? Okay. So I didn't realize that I was creating something that is technically multiple streams of income off of one idea, based off of who I loved to work with all the time anyway. So of course, that started being pulled into referrals that would come into my private practice. Hey, I have a 19-year-old son. I need them to want to move out one day. Why isn't my kid independent? They didn't realize the school wasn't teaching the skill. Therefore, the parents was supposed to. So from the what I already have access to, right? I clearly did not randomly decide on the stream of income I'm going to just launch all these things. Okay. So as a recap, that stream of income that I'm referencing, it was connected to. So I want you to think about, with the stream of income that I want, or that I want to relaunch, what is it already connected to in my past, whether it be on my resume or right here. So these are examples. That stream of income was linked to a population I already thoroughly understand. It was also a problem I already understood and treated. I already had skills from teaching to individual therapy to workshops under somebody else's business or nonprofit to focus on this topic. And then I already had built out, without knowing it, resources over time that were my IP, my intellectual property. So I want you to think about, what intellectual property do you have sitting on your phone, on Google Docs, anywhere electronically, and you forget that they're there. But if you piecemeal them together, you might realize that you have a beautiful product, whether it's a digital product or a service, waiting for you to package it and deliver it. Okay. So if you want to take notes on how, like this would be the space. Okay. So, three things you want to evaluate first. So, if you are drawing, like if you have a pen and paper, draw out a stool, technically. Okay. So, at the top, you're going to have a square or a circle, and then you need to have three legs. So, the example would be the living skills workshop, the knowledge and expertise I have in that area. So, over to the left, it's what I just said. What are all the things that I know about this population and how they do or don't transition successfully outside of their original home? Leg in the middle. What do I already have access to? Education, materials. Maybe I have some marketing clearly because I do private practice. I have warm relationships with school psychologists, school counselors, because I'm going to IEPs for kids in my mental health private practice. But I also have connections through people that I've met through my job. Of course, no conflict of interest, check that. But I just, they have my phone number or whatnot, and I have access to social workers. So I looked at what I already had access to, including my private practice room that I could use. Then in the third leg, I'm looking at what I actually needed to learn. Now, this is the missing gap for entrepreneurs that we fail to acknowledge out loud. So here's the thing. I think that a lot of therapists, for example, we're very aware that we don't know how to do something. However, what tends to happen that sometimes some of us don't want to admit is that because we done paid all this money in school, we may have already joined all these coaching programs, but they didn't tell us how to do this specifically for mental health business. We may feel like, well, I put in my work, I put in my time, I put in my money. I'm not saying you said this out loud, but this is what comes up in our community after they get to know me a little bit. It's very clear this is the hostility inside of you that prevents you from actually launching successfully the next stream of income because you so live in the rearview mirror. You're not looking in the, well, okay, that was a learning lesson or a mistake. I shouldn't have spent that, or I should have not did that back then. I wasn't ready to implement when I had access to the live coaching, but I actually need to do it again. I actually need to learn how to market. I actually need to know how to set up a stand store, a Zoom call, a Stripe checkout system. If you have to learn it, you have to learn it. Do we have accessibility on YouTube, podcasts, and AI? Yes. But there will be particular things that you build in your mental health business that you do want a second pair of eyes on. That's the part that I really need you to hear, because if you don't know what something is supposed to look like what does a sales page for clinical ethical services, for example, supposed to look like so that people don't get the wrong idea? Why am I basing my information and how to build out this stand store page from an online creator that makes TikToks? Think about that. They will get you only so far, but you need maybe more information. Okay. So, number one, what did I know already? Experience and expertise. And so, I want you to give yourself grace. Do not say, I have imposter syndrome. Do not even think you have imposter syndrome, because I would encourage you to launch your next stream, especially if you want to see, I'm going to say, big money based off your timeline and what you can develop. I don't promise timelines. Okay. Is you're never starting from zero. So I just broke down in the beginning of this podcast all the things that I had done that led up to the skill set of me being able to teach and host a workshop. But that doesn't count marketing and stuff. So I already understood young people. I understood transitions into adulthood, including, hell, I was a kid, I had clinical experience. I knew how to teach and facilitate groups. I was running therapy groups, support groups, which means that I know how to hold down a group of people at one time, even though how I do those groups might look different. I understood the questions that parents and caregivers and young people were already asking, because why? I pay attention to facts. So some of you have people that could probably be helping you build your product as you're doing your sessions, but you don't notate your ideas down and realize that, wow, 6 of my clients said that they feel alone when we're talking about X topic. Man, I should probably do a therapy group on this so that they won't feel alone. Okay. So, number two, what did I already have access to? So, what do you already have access to in your private practice? If it's a next stream of income, do you need an EHR? Yes or no? If you do, you already have one. Okay. If you need a platform to see people through a protected space, or maybe Zoom, if it's not therapy, do you already pay for it? Okay. I had a conference room. I already had my expertise. Like I said, I knew the type of kids, and I also knew how to teach the topic. So I needed help to package what I already knew differently. Okay. So, number three, what did I actually need to learn? Now, this is the part you want to pay attention to. This is the true skills gap. This is where you should be investing your time and or money. Okay. So I had to get specific. So this is where you now need to explore, what do you want that one to many beyond one-on-one therapy stream to look like? Just brainstorm, dream. So I at first said, you know what? I want it to be like a 60 to 90-minute workshop. Now it expanded. The one I'm talking about, it was after I had done so at my jobs and things like that. But how to structure a 90-minute workshop, which means that I have to be very specific with what I'm teaching, what type of activities we're doing, and what is the difference maybe between day one and day two. I needed to learn how to market it. I needed to learn how to price it. It's been different prices. It may range from $45 to $50 a kid to $150 a kid for both days. It depended on what season of my business I was in, because every time I do a stream of income boot camp or live stream, I'm always asked a blanket statement of, this is the stream, how do I price it? And this is my general pricing rule. And then if you're my coaching client, I will look at your offer, because I will have taught you how to package your offer. But in essence, for any stream, you first want to start with, what will the person be, do, and have or feel when they have used your product or service? That's where you want to start. What is it worth to them? Then you want to ask yourself simple questions like, well, how much do I regularly charge per hour for my time? And then ultimately, if it's a group of people, I would honestly just use your private practice rate. Don't use rates that other people who've been doing this for years tell you, because if you have imposter syndrome, you're going to get in front of a person. You're going to say, I charge $1,500. And then you're going to get scared before they even ask you your price. And then you're going to be like, oh, I charge 500. Then you're going to be mad that you said 500. I would rather you go in knowing what is your idea, but what is your lowest, where you will walk away with no resent. I would rather, from a coaching perspective, have you start pricing low and or go and do something for free, complimentary, one time if you need to, get feedback, work out the kinks of your products and services, get your training wheels off the ground, okay? And then you can charge the big bucks. Okay. But the last thing you want to do is charge big bucks and you don't know what you're doing. You haven't tested out and validated your idea. So, in essence, I cannot tell you how to price your product. You have to know what feels good to you based off of the offer that you have. And the better question is not, how much should I charge? What are you offering? That should be your first question. If you ask me, what am I charging? I promise you, I'm going to send you a video on that topic related to an offer. Not how much should you price it. When you build it out, then you ask yourself, how much is this worth to the client or the audience or the agency? Okay. Now, how to package my expertise. I looked at, how do I put this in a framework in 2 days where the kids will want to come and where the parents want to invest? So I knew I did not need another certification, at least for this topic. It was just focusing on marketing, packaging, and execution. Okay. So I had to recognize that I had all this expertise on the clinical side and on delivery side and being a professor, but I had not executed, this is really key, on my own. So everything that I had mentioned earlier was, I had a teaching job. I had a contractor opportunity where someone saw my skill set and pulled me in. This over here, the execution was, oh, shoot, nobody's going to go find customers or clients for me. So, another gap that I see a lot of therapists have, and then they get disappointed with launch results for all streams of income, is you don't have an existing audience for that stream. And then you wonder why you don't have customers or clients. What am I saying? Even if you don't know exactly what your product is going to do, what it is going to be, what format, ebook, course, etc., if you know the audience type, if you know what problems you solve, start making content around those topics and start paying attention to what people want, like I did with this living skills. Now, to be frank, that's how I built my private practice. I went online and I was talking to teenagers' parents, and I was talking to people in unhealthy relationships, people who are also dating. I would do live streams back in the day on old school Periscope and Facebook before this existed, before Instagram Live existed, before TikTok existed, all those things. And people just start saying, oh man, when you going to do a part two? I would love for you to talk about X. All right. Well, now I have a vault of videos or context where I can go back to and now create a product. Okay. So, my bigger population, you want to think about, what is the overarching problem or population that you serve. So for me, I knew that my love was young people, teenagers, but I'm like, that's too broad. Nowadays, I feel like adults, teenagers. And so I said, my bigger issue, where the bigger presenting problem is that transitional period. It is that 16 to 24, maybe 25-year old. Now I know it's up to 30, but we're looking at brain development up to 25-year old, in which, if we talk about this topic, their presentation may show up different from a 16 to a 25-year old, but we can still talk about the same topic. It's just that somebody may be more well versed, but ultimately their parents wouldn't bring them if they were educated on this topic. So I decided to cut off the babies for this particular group, and I'm only doing 16 to ideally 24. Okay. So, what does it really take to live independently? So, now we're talking about the framework. So, these are things that went inside how I made the $1,000. I kept it really simple when I use words that people understood. What does it feel like to move out of your family's home and then move into a college dorm? What does that even look like? What does it look like? What are the steps to look for an apartment, a safe apartment? How much does it cost? Do you need roommates to afford it? We would do activities. The average where these kids wanted to stay, they needed 6 roommates. I'm like, wow, wow. And they were like, I guess I ain't moving out no time soon. And so one kid, she was like, and she wasn't even a kid, she was like 22. She was like, I didn't know that my mama had to pay for the light bill. I thought that was free. We got to pay for water. You would be amazed what you may assume that your kid knows and they don't know. So I'll leave it at that. And we were also talking about kids moving away from home, meaning out of state, because they can't at the drop of a dime call their parent to run down there and get them. You know what I'm saying? And so how it all came together, piece by piece, brick by brick, is it went from I already serve teenagers that are broken down into juvenile correctional facilities, high schools, and then what's considered difficult teens, kids who are getting kicked out, expelled out of school, but they don't have a case. Okay, that was my population, all 3 lanes. That led into, what do all 3 of these kids have in common? And that keeps coming up at a particular age: independent living skills, a lack thereof. So I looked at what is one hyper specific problem that I can help them solve, even within independent living skills, because that could be a full year's course. Okay. So I decided I wanted to do an educational workshop. I wanted to generate at least $500 per workshop. How did I come up with that number? I just looked at, if I'm getting paid 125 per hour for individual clients, but this is something that I literally love, 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 even over individual therapy to do. And I can get these kids in a room, because when I get these kids in a room, we laughing, we joking, and we learning. But they learn faster when they learn from each other. They can do breakout activities, because that's how I used to teach my college classes. I do active learning. And so I knew I wanted to make at minimum $500 per workshop, but technically it was a packaged workshop. So I took one big piece of a bigger problem and I built an educational experience around it. Okay. So that's what led into me ultimately creating this series of 2 workshops. Depending on my season, I may do them back to back. I may do it all in one day for 8 hours. It really depended on if I had to get the clients, or if someone was paying me. Then maybe I've done it at a high school where they paid me to fly up there, put me in a hotel, and they paid me for the workshop 1 hour. And I actually came 8 weeks in a row. A lot of flights. I was single. I didn't have no kids. So again, consider your season of life for what you want to do. So for $500 each, to me, that was winning. I know that inflation is real right now, but how many of you would love to get $1,000 doing something you love and there's no intakes? Because see, this is the real flex. There is no intakes. There is no documentation outside of my workbooks, and their treatment plan is the workbook. There is no insurance billing. There is nothing, right? And the other beauty part is you never have to start from scratch, because guess who the room was filled with my very first time doing it at my private practice? Half of the room was filled with my private practice clients and their siblings, because their siblings were not in therapy. I made it very clear when we had our one-on-one session, we are not addressing anything that you talk about in therapy, sir or ma'am. And they were like, all right, bet. They were with it, because I told them, listen, if you try to monopolize the time, make it look like an individual therapy session, I will nicely, I have a rule with kids, clear by the parents. I will tap you on the shoulder the second time after I'm called you for your name, I will pull you out in the hallway and have a little talking to. Okay. So we make sure that the right people are in the right workshop, but that's in marketing in the flyer. So that is how I started generating $1,000 in one weekend, serving multiple people at once instead of relying exclusively on one-on-one hours. So the methodology, it went from niche audience, what is the main problem, my expertise, design a product, and then get money. Okay. So, what's your version of this workshop? Something you want to consider. Who is the population you already understand? What is the hyper specific problem inside of a bigger issue? Don't just say coping skills. Coping skills to help with what, to who, or with who. Okay. What do you already have to build it with? Don't go out there and buy new checkout systems. If you already have something, see if it can take the payments, right? You can always buy more and upgrade later, but start with what you already have. So currently in today's era, I know that a lot of mental health providers that I've encountered with, they're not just in a place where they just want to be a therapist. They just want to be a clinician. They want to be known as the trainer, the speaker, the educator, thought leaders, not AI regurgitators. Please be careful about what you choose to put in AI to then regurgitate back to you, because I need you to continue to keep your intellectual property in terms of your ability to think on your own before you tell AI to give you some ideas. Like AI may know you, but you know yourself better. Okay. So I also want to present to you an opportunity for you to think bigger. It doesn't matter what stream of income you have. Okay. Organizations and agencies, they plan months in advance for people like us to come inside their communities and present on a particular topic. The main months, and then if you have expertise with mothers, miscarriage, cancer, things like that, then they have their own designated months. Domestic violence. Okay. So May is Mental Health Awareness Month, as we know, but the whole month, that's the biggest one. You need to be thinking about ideas like by January. Okay. October, Global Mental Health Awareness Month. Okay. So let me just throw out what I would do. In May, I can literally do this at my son's school. They got junior high school kids. I can say, or I can go to my oldest son's school, like high school, or I can go back to my alma mater, Compton High, and I can say, hey, I'm a clinical psychologist. I don't care if it's new staff. I'm introducing myself. I will go up there. I will ask somebody who can get me into a meeting, to a secretary or somebody. And I would say, hey, I want to give back my time to my alma mater, Compton High. I want to go to whoever teaches economics and government. Boom. And I can say, I want to come in and talk about independent living skills, but specifically how to decrease overwhelm or any nervous feelings about graduating from high school and becoming an adult in this day and age. Okay. Because let's be real, these kids have concerns. They just don't voice them, or they don't have a safe space to talk about them. So I can literally do that for 4 weeks in a row. Well, what happens? I can, if I don't offer this no more, but if I wanted to, I have a whole nother profile that I have not touched in decades, like a decade. It's called Dr. TK. It was my very first handle, and that was for mental health. You can go over there. Instagram is still there. Okay. I just archived a lot of old pictures, but it's like when I came out with my book. But Dr. TK Dr. TK is the page. I could uh revive that page. I could put in the bio clinical psychologist, independent living skills workshops for youth. Contact me below, whatever. And then I can literally go to these schools, and I know they're not allowed to bring out their phones, but they be having them. And I can tell the teacher, like, hey, can we like send out a blast to the app to the parents? Like, I have a workshop coming up. If they want to, they can ask me more about it. Boom. I use speaking to then position me to get in front of more people. Now the kids become my word of mouth referrals. Okay. So I can also do the same for Global Mental Health Awareness Month. I can go, Global Mental Health Awareness Month is during at the end of the year. Agencies probably got to get rid of money. I don't know. Maybe they have conferences. Maybe they have professional development days. Y'all need to get in front of more than just mental health communities. Okay. So there are seasons to create natural opportunities to speak. Even if you don't want to be a keynote speaker, can you teach? And I believe the answer is yes. If you have a clinical practice, you teach something every session. Okay. So organizations do not wait though until May or October or any other significant month to then go and find you. Okay. So my question to you is, can you send over your speaking topic and information if someone asked you? This is the biggest hang up that a lot of my clients even have because they forget what they have access to. And so if someone emailed you today or DM'd you today and said, hey, I love your playlist on X. I love your content on X. Somebody gave me your name. Do you have something like a one pager that's, they may not say polished, but something that's organized that you can send me so I can share it with my nonprofit board? We have a meeting next Friday. And if you say, what the heck is she talking about? Or no, I don't have anything like that, then I would encourage you to check out my book to paid masterclass. So this is a masterclass that is now on demand. The link is down below of this video. And I pretty much break down how to design your speaker's kit package. And I give you some swipe files because I break down, even from last year, how I was able to, excluding digital product sales, excluding coaching programs, excluding individual therapy practice, very much part-time, just from speaking in workshops, able to generate over 50K in 1 year. Okay. So this speaker's kit masterclass, which is called Booked and Paid, it is giving you a clear breakdown of what to put in a speaker's pitch kit. It provides you with a video, but it's broken up into small pieces, step-by-step framework, and it's yours. It doesn't expire. So it's a step-by-step framework to design your speaker's one sheet. It also helps you position and it works you through questions to choose your speaking and training topics. It also gives you 3 ways to pitch your stuff into marketing material. It also shows you how, as a bonus, you can take this, what I'll help you create, and put it either and/or on your website, bits and pieces of it on your social media, meaning marketing positioning. I talk about that in the masterclass as well. And then ultimately leading you to a simple structure for responding to speaking inquiries. Okay. So my goal is to help you get prepared, positioned, and professional and get paid. Okay. But I want to be able to teach you this in a step-by-step way. On YouTube, I love to introduce you to real case studies so that you can literally see also how I started over a decade ago and how I'm still doing the same thing. I've just gotten better and faster. Okay. So again, if you are ready to build your pitch kit, okay, then make sure that you join the paid masterclass. It is, again, self-paced. It is yours. And inside of it, it also has like swipe files, templates that I'm going to share with you. So how did y'all enjoy the live workshop today? I know that some people were popping in and out, but how did you enjoy the breakdown of the audience? You can put it in the chat box. The breakdown of the audience, recognizing that you do not have to start from scratch with who you want to serve, systems that you have, but more than likely the biggest chunk of what you want to execute is going to be around usually getting very clear about what you want to market and produce, and then how to package it to then be ready when an opportunity presents itself. And that's my biggest thing that I want you to take away from this is you have thousands on top of thousands on top of decades of experience, and you can launch any stream of income that you choose, but I would highly recommend that you only focus on building out one at a time, see it through, test it out, validate your idea. And even if you're not getting hits, for example, if I were to send out my pitch kit, it may have been that your budget doesn't align with them. Maybe they don't want to negotiate. Maybe that audience is really not for you. So similar to like content creators with brand deals, I would recommend if it's something you need to be sending out, like for me, a speaker's kit. And if I wanted to get on someone's stage, because I did this for myself last year, I'm like, I want to be on like 3 stages, but I want to have one keynote speaking and I want to do panelist, host, or something like that. I manifested it. But why? Because I was showing up on social media, actually telling people that I'm a speaker. I was actually showing footage when I even do reels on another topic. People see me on a stage or on my stage, or they see me if I'm talking about mental health workshops. I'm going to put in the background of the video or in the swipe carousel videos or pictures with permission of the agencies, where I've hosted the workshops. It doesn't matter if the workshop was 5 years ago or 5 months ago. I do a blend of the two because I have a lot of content on my phone and on my laptop. But I'm telling you, you got to tell people that you're available for a product or service. People aren't just going to drop in your lap and assume that you have something new just because you're a poppin' therapist. That's not how marketing works. Okay. So I would like to get clear on how to build on my experience. So when it comes down to, depending on the stream of income, let's just say if we're talking about like speaking, I would just highly recommend that you get out there and just start. People would disagree, but I would say you go out there and start speaking for free. Speaking is an acquired skill, and you have to figure out your flow. I am a speaker, if you have not noticed, where I do not prefer, it doesn't mean I won't do it, but I do not prefer to speak and I don't know who's talking back to me. So while I can't see y'all, I will tell you to put stuff in the chat box. If we're on a Zoom call and everybody's screen is off, I will tell you to put something in the chat box. Okay. If I am a keynote speaker at a conference, I will say something like, if y'all agree, raise your hand. I know we can't pass around the mic, but I'm not trying to do no, I ain't saying I would never do it, but I'm not trying to do like a graduation keynote speaker, but that may be what you want to do. So if that's the case, you need to go to Toastmasters or something that's going to help you learn how to speak. Now, get this, if your goal is speaking, training, or workshops, my question to you is, I'm not looking at viewer count. I'm not looking at, like, honestly, how many people view my videos. I have a very niche channel. I've been on YouTube for a long time. I do not get thousands of views unless I talk about something that makes news, like headlines or whatever. And I'm not trying to do that all the time. Okay. And so that doesn't match my product suite. Okay. I'm not on YouTube just for fun. I do that on my Disney channel and travel channel. Okay. So bottom line is, have you created your own stage? If you were like, well, I don't want to do video. If you don't want to do video, then you don't want to speak. How do you think they find speakers? I'm just using this as an example. If I go to your Instagram, do I even know that you speak? Is there a call out for the third quarter saying you are available for speaking engagements? I'm just saying. It's like the women, I'm gonna say the girly girls, you know what I'm saying, say in our community, they be like, damn, you just snatch my edges out again, girl. I'm just saying, this is the stuff that my coaches, in a very nice way, I just have my own way of delivery, that they would say to me, like, so let me get this straight. You want to speak, but you don't want to talk even at your table at this event. You don't want to raise your hand and ask your question, even though you got a burning desire question, because we gonna put you on the mic in front of 400 people. I'm not meeting you in the corner. That is not what I'm here for. And so I've been in rooms from masterminds that are focused on speaking and marketing. That was actually my very first coaching investment, to then intimate rooms, to 7 to 8 figure rooms where I was one of the smallest fish in the room. But all of these experiences have taught me something and has challenged me. And the reason why I truly believe that I am a good speaker is because I'm a good teacher. But the only way that I knew that I was a good teacher, to validate that, is I had to get out my comfort zone. And in my master's program, they had us do a guest lecture in the undergrad program. And please note, again, my hair looking like this. I'm looking half my age, and I was half this age. And I'm going into a room with people who are actually my age now, but I was 20 something. Do you know how intimidating that is? Right? I had to teach my first 15-week class at a school where I was 25. One of my students was 65. Majority of my students were my age and up. Last day of class, potluck presentations. I'm just, getting the potluck ready. And I'm like, oh my God, y'all been the best first class I ever had. They said, this your first class? I said, yes. And I didn't know what to say after that. I just got quiet. And they were like, girl, I would have never knew. You did an awesome job. Then they just started pouring into me. And I was just like, whew, but I made a point not to tell them because I felt like my imposter syndrome was coming up. So what I want to leave you with is, get the book to paid masterclass. But with that, you need to create your own stage. Remember I said I was going live stream. I'm casually sitting on my staircase in the house, just came back from the jail. And I'm like, let's talk about how one of my topics, y'all, literally was, you say she crazy, but did you make her that way? I'm talking about real conversations that men and women be having. Like, I should link that up in my stories. I got to find it. I had a whole Google blog, right, linked to my videos before YouTube. All right, y'all. So I enjoyed your company. I'm just sitting here talking to y'all like we sit in a room. All right. So get the book and paid masterclass. It is linked below in the description. When I'm done, I will pin it to the comments. But I love having you here. If you are not subscribed and you like content like this, whether it's live streams. I do have a lot of pre-recorded podcasts and tutorials around streams of income for mental health providers with a little mix with my old vlogs. Then definitely subscribe because you don't want to miss it. I post content pretty much every single week, and also stay connected to us in the community tab, because I know not everybody wants to do the doom scrolling on Instagram. We just want to get what we need and get off. All right. So I will talk to y'all soon. Like this video and let me know if you have any questions below.